Okay, it's 9 o'clock. I'd like to call the Standing Committee for the Neighbors of Dunn County to order. And for call of the roll, it looks like all the supervisors are here. And we have the minutes from last time. I hope you had a chance to look them over. Supervisor Story moved to approve. Supervisor Lyon seconded. Any other comments or changes? Then all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? None. Any public comment? Tom? There is no public comment and no. And then we go down to number 5. Once again, I had asked Carmen to do some teaching, and she did a real nice job last time. And here we go again. Thank you, Carmen. You're on number 5.
All right. So this month's education is kind of related to last month's education. So last month we talked about payer sources. So this month I wanted to talk about types of stay at the neighbors. So we talked about who paid for these types of stay, and we briefly touched on the different kinds of versus short-term or long-term stays. But I wanted to go a little bit more in depth on that. So as you're all aware, the Neighbors is 3 separately licensed skilled nursing facilities. We are duly certified in all 3 of those. So what that means is that we can accept Medicare and Medicaid for all 3. So we are both state and federally certified. That allows us to admit any kind of resident for a skilled nursing stay or a long-term care stay in any bed on campus. But we do have sections of our campus that are more specifically for different kinds of stay. But that being said, they can technically be admitted to any bed on campus. So the first kind of stay is a short-term rehabilitation stay. So those are folks that are coming to us from the hospital typically. They're coming after some sort of either surgery, an incident, a fall, some sort of illness, some sort of drastic change that required them to be admitted to the hospital and then be admitted to a nursing home for a short-term stay. The goal for these residents is to go home or to a setting that is less restrictive. So like an assisted living or a group home or something like that. Their main goal is not to stay at the nursing home long term. That being said, that does happen at times. Sometimes at the end of a short-term stay, when we're doing discharge planning, it's realized that it's not appropriate for someone to go home, or they truly do need to stay long-term, or they just want to stay long-term. Then they would transition to long-term care and likely move to a household that is more specialized for long-term care. Currently on our campus, we have 2 households that are designated as our short-term care households. So that would be Fireside and Arrowhead. Arrowhead is the household that is currently closed and has been for many years. So Fireside is the only open designated short-term stay household, but we do have short-term people that are admitted all across campus. If we don't have an open bed in Fireside, we will admit someone to a short-term stay in the other households. Or if we have someone that we think might stay long term. They're kind of up in the air on if that's going to be, but it's brought up before they're admitted. We will sometimes admit them to where their long term bed is going to be so we don't have to move them later on. We don't have people stay long term in Fireside. We do then ask them to move to a different household when they do stay long term to a long term household because that's the in and out household kind of thing. So if we know that there's a likelihood that they're going to stay, we just admit them to where their actual home is going to be later on. When folks are here for a short-term stay, they are considered to have what's called a skilled need. So that means that they're eligible for Medicare or their HMO plan. So when we talked about payment sources last month, the Medicare Advantage and Medicare plans, that would mean that Medicare approves them to be there under Medicare Part A or under an Advantage plan's Part A type. To do that, it's either by therapy needs or by some specific nursing needs. So, therapy is by the amount of therapy. They have to have at least 5 days a week of therapy to qualify, and then they also have to be making gains. So, if someone is plateauing and therapy does not think that they can advance them any further, that is when they would issue what's called a NOM-NOC or notice of non coverage, and that is when their Medicare stay or short term stay would end. Therapy does most of the assessments for that if they need to be on a Medicare short-term stay, but it's also the whole interdisciplinary team talks about it. And then nursing is involved too, because some very complex nursing needs, such as daily wound changes, would also qualify someone to stay on a short-term stay. Our folks that are there for short-term care have very highly complex medical needs. It over the years, even as long as I've been doing it, which I've been here 7 years, I've been an administrator for 9. It's changed drastically the level of care that our folks need. So what we typically would have seen staying in a hospital, now we care for in a nursing home. And then same thing goes down to an assisted living. What used to be assisted live or nursing home care is now able to be done in assisted living. So the acuity of our people has continued to increase. We see complex wounds, IV therapy, ostomy care, catheter care, new amputations, complex pharmaceutical needs. Sometimes we have people with trachs. We are not a vent center, so we don't have people on ventilators. But if they have a tracheotomy that is there, has been there a while, we will take them. Tube feeding is common, complex IV therapy, and complex wounds is a really big part of that. As I mentioned, the whole campus is dually certified, so we will frequently see people across campus. That being said, our main therapy gym is in the central building, so if that is the case, we have therapists that go out to those outer buildings, or we bring the folks into the central building if they need the gym equipment. So we do utilize the gym for the whole campus, but we do have some items out in the outer buildings as well. Um, so that was short-term stay. Before I move on to long-term care, is there any questions about short-term stays?
Yeah, wow. Okay.
All right, so I'll move on to short or long term. So long term stays are what is considered intermediate care. If you look at state statutes, is people who their goal is not to go home. So our main goal for these individuals is to maintain functional, physical, and cognitive status. So we are trying to maintain their current levels. Obviously, that isn't always possible, and people do decline, as many of our long term care residents end up passing away while they live in our care. So we do obviously know that people decline, but our goal is to prevent that or slow that down as much as possible. Many of our residents that are here for a long-term stay have a wide variety of ailments, conditions, comorbidities, and have a wide range of abilities. So we have some folks that you would never know that they live in a nursing home. They look like visitors. They still do need our care, but sometimes those are a little bit more hidden, whether it be they have a complex wound or have complex pharmaceutical needs. They still may need us, but they may look very independent on baseline. And then we have some folks that need total and maximum assistance with all of their activities of daily living. So that would be like getting dressed, eating, bathing, walking, anything that you and I do every single day, our folks need assistance with at times. Our care for our long-term folks, like our short-term, is very individualized. We care for them in the way that works for them. So they all have what's called care plans that drive what we do for them. So some folks need assistance with feeding, some folks don't. Some people need pureed food, some people do not. Everything is based on their individual needs. We really strive to look at the overall quality of life of our residents, not just the quality of care. So we don't just focus on getting them better, like the focus is on short term, is improvement of their current status. We really focus on keeping their quality of life. So looking at both emotional, physical, psychosocial, spiritual well-being for all of our residents. The interdisciplinary team is also very involved with long-term care residents. We have care conferences every quarter that involve the residents, sometimes their family members, if the residents would like them there, if they have an activated power of attorney, they're included, and then the whole interdisciplinary team, which is made up of nursing, activities, dietary, social services, therapy, if applicable, and then they all meet with the resident as well. So it's all focused around the resident and making sure that we are meeting their needs. The interdisciplinary team also meets with the resident regularly to do assessments. And as we've talked in the past about the MDS or minimum data set, those are also completed for short-term folks as well. The main payer sources for long-term care at the neighbors is Medicaid is our number one payer source, with about 70% of all residents are on Medicaid, private pay, and then Veterans Affairs. Under the umbrella of long-term care, there's also some specialized services that are in addition to the traditional long-term care. Memory care is one thing that is very specific at the neighbors and at most facilities. We do care for folks with memory issues or any memory disorders or diagnoses like dementia, Alzheimer's, Lewy body disorders, Parkinson's, Huntington's, anything that fits under that care across our whole campus. Our memory care households are not exclusive. We also have people with dementia in every single household on campus, including our short-term rehab. But our memory care households are for folks that really truly need an added layer of security and safety, and a very calm environment is the goal. We do not have any locked units on campus. There are some very few facilities in the state that have a locked unit. The state does not really grant those anymore as they're very restrictive. Most are county homes that still have locked unit licensures from years back, and they've maintained them. There's not commonly new locked units. So ours are not locked, but they are a little bit more secure we have our doors closed to the hallways. Most, if not all of our residents on those households have what's considered a wander guard, which is a little bracelet that looks like a watch, and that just alarms and locks the doors if you try to exit the doors. That being said, if they push on the door for 15 seconds, it's going to open. It's part of a fire security and to make it so that we're not considered locked. The memory care households are intended to be safer, as well as everybody that's in the memory care households, their families, and them, if they're able, understand that the folks wander, they might go into different rooms, they might have added behaviors compared to if we have someone with severe dementia in one of our regular long-term care households that might be disruptive to others that aren't having the same situation going on. So it's kind of a mutual understanding that Betty might end up in Susie's room because she doesn't know which room is hers. And the families kind of agree to that when they admit their folks to that household. In addition to memory care, another service that we have that fits under long-term care is hospice care. We are not our own hospice provider, but we do contract with several hospice companies. They come in and provide added services for our residents. So the nursing home staff at the neighbors still do everything that they would do for anybody else. Hospice is in addition to that. So it might be an extra shower every week, extra CNA care, extra nursing care. They also are overseen by both our physicians and the hospice physicians. It also comes with additional medications that are available to them at end of life. Those folks are assessed by the hospice companies because they are required to meet certain criteria to qualify for hospice. And the hospice companies come in, assess them, and then enroll them in their services if they meet the needs for hospice. We have many people on hospice at the facility. A common misconception of hospice is that it means that people are dying in the next month or so. We've had people on hospice for years. So hospice just means that you have a likelihood of passing away within the next 6 months is the general term. So when the hospice company comes in and assesses, they look for things like weight loss. Certain diagnoses can automatically qualify you for hospice, but just there's a prognosis of 6 months or less. People then Sometimes it just gets getting extended until they pass away. I think the longest I've seen is someone was on hospice for 5 years. We've also had people graduate from hospice. So they were on hospice and they start doing better and they then get disenrolled because they no longer meet the criteria. So it does happen. It doesn't necessarily mean end of life. It is just an added service to keep people comfortable. That is the types of care at the nursing home. I don't know if there are any questions at all on any of those. I would be happy to answer.
Yeah, let's go with it. Supervisor Laufer.
Yes, Carmen, when you spoke about the memory care, over the years, you've been there a long time. Is there new medications that they're treating people with for memory care? And have you seen, are they effective or not?
So I am not a nurse. So I'm not capable of speaking on specific medications. Actually, Dr. Brown might be better at that than I would. But I would say we have not seen anybody doing any of the like trial medications. We've never had a clinical trial or anything like that at the nursing home. It is something you can do. It's actually a question they ask on every survey is, have you done clinical trials here in the last year? And I always chuckle and say, no, who would do that? But so we have, to my knowledge, we have not seen different medications for that, but I'm not 100% sure. We might have, but.
Thank you.
Yeah, and take your time. There's a lot to digest here. Supervisor Lyon.
With the those memory guards, how effective are they in actually keeping people contained if they're pushing on a door for?
So they're actually very effective as long as people keep them on. That's our hardest thing is that we have people that find the most interesting ways to cut them off. So they're not like a removable band like a watch. They're similar to like a hospital bracelet that are permanent. They have to be cut off, but they are very effective in letting us know that someone's trying to leave. So it's not going to stop somebody. It will lock the door, but then you can push it open. But it does alert staff that someone's trying to exit one of the households. It also, if you're going through, if you're in a household in the nursing home, and we have it across the whole campus. So every household has them. It's just the majority of the people in the memory care households have one on. If you're going through the big doors, it doesn't close those doors because that could hurt somebody. So it just alarms and then it notifies staff that someone's trying to leave their designated area. But they are very helpful. But the biggest tricky part is we do have people who cut them off. We've found creative ways to either put them on ankles so people don't notice them or on wheelchair or walker legs so that they're not physically on their person. Because I mean, they could be annoying if they don't know what they are. Why is this band on me kind of thing? So we have had many found in different locations because they were removed.
I have a question. The care guidelines that you operate under, are they primarily federal or state or a combination of the two? And is there much variation from state to states? Like if you go across the border into Minnesota or Illinois, are you going to see changes?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
I just want, we can just limit it to us as far as the discussion goes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So the first part
Sure.
is great.
Okay. So yes, so federal guidelines guide the majority of what we do. So we basically like anything else in government, we have to meet the minimum one. So if the state has something in a guideline that is stricter than the federal requirement, we have to do that. So we are under both federal and state requirements. CMS, the Centers for Medicaid and Medicare Services, set the majority of our regulations, and that is federal. And then DHS and DQA through the state add on to that. So each state is different. I won't touch on what those differences are, but each state is different for specific regulations, but we all meet the federal requirements first, and then each state adds things into that. And some states don't have any state requirements.
Supervisor Story.
To piggyback on that, would that also involve the amounts of money that come to the facilities that are Medicare, Medicaid amounts, you know, the amounts that you get per person? The formula that that is used in facilities in Minnesota versus Wisconsin?
Yes, every state, so since Medicaid is a state, it's dually state and federal funding, every state creates their own program. So each state is different when it comes to how they do that, and they actually submit their Medicaid program to CMS, and then CMS approves it. So, but each state is different.
Are we competitive?
I actually don't know the answer to that, as I have only worked in Wisconsin except for briefly in Illinois, and it was at a non-Medicaid certified facility. We only accepted private pay and Medicare. So I actually don't know the answer to that anymore. Wisconsin used to be the worst of the 50 states, but ever since we had the last biennium budget, I believe we are more competitive. They haven't come out with a ranking in the last few years, but we used to be the worst of the worst, and we are not anymore.
Thank you, Carmen.
Well, thank you very much, Carmen. And so now we've got two of them, and keep those together somewhere, whether it's digital or paper, but there are going to be several, and there'll be great references as we go along too, because I know she's told me these things before, and I keep forgetting them. So great job. Okay. Number 6 then, Community Mentor Administrator Report. Carmen?
So as always, we start with Quality Assurance Steering Committee updates. I actually was not at our meeting this month because I had a conflicting meeting, but I did go over the minutes and talk to a couple folks that were at the meeting. So we went over our quality indicators, which is something that is given to us from CMS, basically based on the assessments that we turn in to the government, both the state and federal government. They then kick back what's called quality indicators, and it basically ranks us against other facilities. So, and it goes through all different things, falls, psychotropic meds, increase or decrease in ADL status, things like that. And it just basically puts you on a scale to make sure that you're doing okay, comparatively speaking. That is also part of the 5-star ranking. So it goes into the overall CMS 5-star ranking is our quality indicators. So we review those quarterly because that's when they get sent out. There was nothing completely out of the norm. We do sometimes have higher instances of psychotropic medications. That is partially because of the clientele that we serve. County facilities have historically taken anybody that needs care. If we are able to meet their needs, we take them, versus some private entities do not. So we sometimes, and like other county homes, are higher on some of those metrics just because we serve a more complex population than other facilities. So nothing looked out of the norm or alarming on those that was noted. We also had the safety report. So Brady, who's here today, gave his quarterly report from our safety committee, primarily looked over evacuation policies and procedures. So Brady put together a new evacuation policy, and that was approved through the Quality Assurance Steering Committee this month, as well as we talked about our evacuation drill, which actually was yesterday. So we do an evacuation drill annually to plan for if we had to evacuate our residents. We could do all the planning in the world, and I don't think that we would be ready because we don't know what's going to happen, but we do our best. So that was yesterday. So Brady, the facilities team, EMS, and then the neighbors staff evacuated residents and volunteers that pretended to be residents from the facility actually over to here, which would be our plan as long as this building was still standing until we could figure out places for people to go. So that's a big endeavor every year. So we discussed that at this meeting, and then it was actually yesterday. So I'm sure Brady and or Scott might talk about that a little bit more too. But then we also had our new pharmacist at the Quality Assurance Steering Committee. So our previous pharmacist had retired. So our new pharmacist was there for the first time this month. Any questions about QA?
Sounds good. Let's go on to B.
Okay,
Employment activity report.
and Chris is online.
Hey, Chris.
Good morning. Good morning. So on the April employment activity, the types of recruitment stayed the same, except I did do the job fair at the Menominee High School. We go down to number of interviews. We had 11 direct hire interviews, 0 agency interviews. Our agency has been pretty regular. Our positions offered were 8, positions accepted were 8, and offered higher than a step 3 was 1 position. Wanted to go above what I could offer on the grid. We skipped down to resignation reasons. At a couple of part-time CNAs, 3 part-time CNAs, kind of moving, graduation, that type of stuff. We had 1 part-time RN accepted a position with hospice, and then we had 1 part-time homemaker high school student just schedule conflicts with sports schedules and whatnot. If we go down to open positions, those were adjusted. You'll notice on the LPN positions, it did jump up a little bit, kind of through some of the look back and whatnot with the budgeting process. I kind of tallied them up a little bit different. It's actually 16 total positions. So I think there's 2 full-time and the rest of them are very part-time positions, like an every other weekend type position. So for nurses, licensed staff, we're doing well. For CNA staff, it stayed about the same, not so great. 38 positions open and 22 of them are filled with agency. And then we had 1 part-time homemaker open, which will be filled on the next report because I have a few orientations scheduled in June. If we go down to work comp, lost hours, 0 for the month of April. And for April, missed shifts due to COVID positives was 0.
Wow. Thank you, Chris. Any questions? No, it doesn't look like it. So let's move on then. Well, CNA training program should be quick.
Yes, but I actually have a couple more things for
Oh,
employment,
okay.
just some updates. So last month I had Rebecca Proudlock come. She is our new clinical mentor for the campus. That meant that her role was open. So I just wanted to share that we also promoted another internal applicant, Ashley Peterson. She was one of our MDS nurses, is now in the central ACM position. So we're happy to have her. And then that also left an MDS nurse position open. So we had several internal applicants for that, which we are very happy with. As when that position's been open in the past, we've kind of had to ask and beg people to try it out because some nurses don't want to sit at a desk and do assessments and things like that. They want to be out on the floor nursing. So we sometimes have struggles with that, but we actually had several applicants for that. So we are very happy with that. So our new MDS nurse will be starting on Wednesday. She is this coming Wednesday, so a week from yesterday. She is currently a night shift nurse with us. Her name is Corey. She works the night shift on Memorial Day, so that was a hard one to fill. So we waited till after that, and obviously she can't come in on Tuesday after working the night shift. So she'll be starting next Wednesday in that role. So we're happy to have her in that. So those are nursing updates. And then one final employment update. It's not directly related to an NDC employment, but as you are all aware, Jane Hansen is no longer with the county. So she prepared our financial reports for these committees and was the lead for NDC's financing. I just wanted to share that we're currently in the works for interviewing for that position. So hopefully in the near future, we will have more news about that. But we have movement and we have had a few applicants. So now CNA training. Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we'll move on to CNA training program. I actually do have a couple of updates for the first time in
Yeah.
a few months. So we currently have a very large class. We have 10 students at the facility that started this week for CNA training. So that's a completely full class for them. So we were really excited about that. So I don't know off the top of my head if any of them are NDC. Chris might know. I think that at least one is an NDC current employee.
Correct. A homemaker going for the CNA program because she wants to go full time.
Yes. Yeah.
Can
So
I go backwards just for a second on a little fun fact on Ashley?
yeah.
So Ashley actually started here at 16 years old as a CNA and progressed through as an LPN and then to an RN. So kind of a fun fact with Ashley.
Yeah, and on that note, we've actually had several people in the last couple of weeks transition from homemaker to CNA positions, so that's exciting as well. So we have had a good focus on advancement at the neighbors lately, which sometimes is a little bit tricky in our world, but we have homemakers becoming CNAs and then assistant clinical mentors becoming clinical mentors and MDS nurses becoming assistant clinical mentors. So really happy to keep advancing our staff.
Yeah. And a couple LPNs that are kind of in that window for taking the NCLEX for the RN. So
Thanks
Yes.
for sharing, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for filling that in.
All right. So yeah, so we have a large class right now with at least one person that is intention to stay at the neighbors, and then hopefully some of those other students will want to stay after they do clinicals with us as well. And then the other update from the CNA training program is the company that does the CNA training program with us actually was able to get our facility certified for being a testing site. So to become a CNA, you have to take the class, do the clinicals, and then also complete a written and a skills test. So the skills test is completed on mannequins and their judges or examiners, I'm not sure what they refer to them as, that come in and review. They tell the students to complete a task and then they watch them do the task and make sure that they did it correctly. That's how you get certified as a CNA. You have to be certified to be a testing site to complete tests and have those examiners come out. There is a huge lack of testing sites in our area. We had a really tough time getting students in to be tested over the past few years. People traveling all over the state, sometimes almost all the way down to Milwaukee to take their test. So traveling all across the state to take their CNA test. So we're really excited to be a testing site. I believe right now there's only one other in our area. I think Dove, their system has testing sites, but we are really excited for that because it's just another roadblock in having more CNAs. So fixing those roadblocks is a good thing. So we're real happy
Cool.
that they were able to do that.
Good deal. Comments or questions? Nope. I think resident referral report.
All right. So resident referral report at the beginning of the month of April, we had 114 residents at NDC. We had 87 referrals this month. We continue to still have really high referral rates. I don't see this changing in the near future. Facilities are either full or full to the max that they can admit due to staffing. And we still have full hospital beds as well. The number of residents admitted to NDC, we had 10 admissions this month. We had 77 people not admitted. The reason that number is pretty low, even though we didn't have any COVID or anything like that, is that 114 is pretty close to the max that we can fill without adding additional staff. I believe the maxed out at 116 this month was the highest we got, with an average of 112 for the month of April, which is really good. That's where we're hoping to be at. Anything above 110, we're pretty happy with. But that does mean that we can't admit as many because we are fuller. We had 112 residents at the end of the month. We had 3 residents transfer to other facilities. That's a little bit higher of a number. I anticipate that to continue to be higher than what we've seen in the past, for the reason of people are getting in wherever there's an open bed and then transferring when there's an open bed closer to home. So we have people transferring to us, we're transferring people other places. It's just wherever they can find a place to go. And then when there is a place open, they will transfer there. We had 4 deaths this month, and we had 2 people discharged home. Our normal referral sources were the same, Menominee and Eau Claire Mayo. The majority of our residents come from the Mayo system, sometimes from Marshfield, but primarily the Mayo system. Just a fun fact. So our average, like I said, was 112 this month. Last year at this time, our average was about 106. So we're doing 6 better than last year. So, and that's been pretty consistent, that our average has been right around 110, a little over. And when I looked back at last year's, most were around 105, 106 for each month. So pretty consistently 5-ish people more than we had last year. So doing good on census. Any questions for a resident referral report?
No, looks good. Oh, wait, Supervisor Laufer.
Yeah, Carmen, have you increased the number of staff then from last year up to this year now? Is that why you're able to take more residents? Is that the main reason why you're?
Marginally. So yes, we have increased so we had Fireside open last year, but only to the amount that we were able to with 1 CNA, really is all we were doing at that point. So at this point, we typically have 2 CNAs down in Fireside. So then that means we can take more people in Fireside. So marginally, yes, but not enough to get to like full census or anything like that.
Thank you.
Okay. We're on to Scott and Brady, Environmental Facilities Report, E.
Good morning. I'll pass along the good news. Really good news is the food service golf cart came in. The cab was being installed, and last word I heard is possibly this morning being delivered. So that is very good news. Also talking with the company, they are getting in a 2023 golf cart that has a van body on it. They don't have a use for it, so they're offering to see if we would be interested in that. So I'll have to get more information on that and see if that's something we want to look into, upgrading the van body also on that. But I'll get more information and talk with Carmen about that. Had guys out spraying weed and feed on the lawn out in front of the houses. So now that the sun's coming out and the rain's drying up, we'll see how the dandelions tip over. But yesterday when I was over at Neighbors, I see out front that a lot of the dandelions have tipped over. So hopefully they're going to die off, and then we'll assess if there's more spraying that needs to be done. I contacted the roofing contractor about the couple of leaks that we've had. We did not have any leaks reported that I'm aware of from this last rain. He is setting up a time in his schedule. When he has time, he'll set that up with me, come out, take a look at those spots, and give us an estimate as what it would cost to repair those. Let's see. Then I would say that my next thing is, if you haven't heard, my last day is June 4th. And Brady will be taking over as interim director, so he'll be doing his role and filling in on my role, which I think he'll do great on. And then, like Carmen said, the disaster drill was performed yesterday. And I'll give it to Brady to see if he wants to give a report on it, because he was totally involved in that.
Yeah, I guess yesterday was a disaster drill. We just evacuated the residents, and we also last month, or this month here, we did the tabletop exercise as well, which was exercise for training for the staff on how to handle an evacuation. But everything went really well. The fire department made it out, and we were able to speak with them, and the E911 as well, and kind of went through the evacuation. So
Yes, go ahead.
yeah, well, we did, was it last week, we had a tornado warning, and the staff did an excellent job getting the residents ready. We had a lot of time to prepare for this one because we knew it was coming. But we did get all the residents moved out of their rooms. There was a few that, one or two that did not, but we convinced everyone to come out of their rooms, and we gather in the hallways where there's reinforced steel in the walls. And then the staff make sure all the windows are closed and locked, and the doors are closed as well, to keep, any type of wind tunnel going through the building if something were to happen to one of the households. But the last actual warning that we had went really well.
Thank you, Supervisor Lyon.
Brady, what are some of the challenges that you encounter with trying to evacuate residents? Are you actually evacuating them from the building or just into a safe space within the building?
For warnings, it's just within the same,
Sure.
they stay in the same household. They just, we gather in the hallways and basically try to keep everyone together and in those safe spots where that are designated in each household.
Okay. If what happens if you actually had to, it's like saying in case of a fire or something and residents had to be evacuated from the building, how is that done?
For a fire, we internally evacuate. So we have fire doors at the entrance to each household.
Okay.
We can move those residents inside the house, or we can obviously go outside the house. But we do try to interior evacuate whenever possible, and then transfer those residents to a different house for until the threat has cleared.
Okay. There's probably a certain advantage to having 3 separate households because you do have, facilities that are.
Separate buildings does help as well.
Yeah.
That we would be able to move residents from one building to another.
Sure. It just occurred to me. It's pretty cool.
And then we also, if the situation happened, so when we do the disaster drills, we typically say that a tornado hit all 3 buildings because we are required to plan for a true evacuation, which luckily with our setup, a true evacuation of all 3 buildings would be very unlikely unless there was a tornado that went straight down them. Because if there's a fire, it's probably just one building. If there was some sort of issue, it wouldn't typically affect all 3. If that were to happen, we also have contracts with other nursing homes. We're required to have memorandums of agreement with nursing homes that are outside of 50 miles of us, so that if something were to happen, obviously if something happened to us, ALH across town is probably also in the same boat. So we're required to have agreements with places outside of our area. So we have Clark County's nursing home and Trempealeau County's nursing homes. We have contracts with them that if something happened, we call them and they take as many people as they can. And then same thing goes for if something happened to them, we would take as many people as we could. But so the other households are the first evacuation, and then it's this building actually. So that's where we evacuated people to yesterday. Was we came over here, but obviously we can't have people staying here long term. It would just be a safe place to figure out where they go next. Yep.
Always learning something new. Supervisor Laufer.
In a situation like we had last week where there was lots of warning, do you uh, call in extra staff for such a thing to be prepared to evacuate people out of their rooms, if need be, when those things occur? Or do you just operate with the same number of staff that are currently there?
Yeah, for the example, like last week, we did not call extra staff in because it was during the daytime where we have quite a bit of staff there. Depending on the situation, if there was a nighttime emergency, we would need to call extra staff in because we don't have many staff. If something were to have actually happened to the building, then we would have called extra staff in. And we have a mechanism that to send a mass notification to all nursing staff, which is the bulk of our staff. And so we did actually test that yesterday too, to send out a text message to everybody that says, it said, we're in a drill, please don't actually come in. But testing our communication mechanism for emergency calling in. So we do have that in place if need be, but we don't do that for a warning because everybody got in and then there wasn't much to do kind of thing. The staff is really good at this. We unfortunately have watches and warnings regularly. So the staff is really, really good at getting all the residents out, and the residents too are also really understanding, and they've done it so many times that they know what to do. So like Brady said, we have a couple that say absolutely not. One lady that I asked to take her out of her room told me, I'm fine, I'm not scared. So we have some that don't want to come out, and that's their choice, but most of the residents are pretty good about it too.
Thank you.
Yeah, go
Sorry.
ahead.
Insurance man's daughter. What's the liability of somebody to the facility if, say, somebody refuses to leave their room?
We document it. So if it's their choice to not leave their room, all of the folks that live with us are adults and they can make their own decisions. So even if they have an activated power of attorney, that person makes their medical decisions, but the residents still make their lifestyle decisions. So we just document it whenever we go. We keep a list of anyone who said no, put it in their chart, and that way it was their choice. But we try to keep them as safe as possible. We do some negotiation. We get them away from their windows if they let us. We still close the blinds if they let us. We'll bring in extra blankets and try to cover them up so that if glass did come through a window, things like that. But we try to negotiate them to the safest spot that they'll allow.
Okay, thank you, Brady and Scott. Appreciate it. Oh, Gordy, Supervisor Wolf.
I just, just had a comment to that. I would be a problem. If grew up in the country, I'm gonna stand in the window. Thank you. I wanna watch it come.
Make a note of that.
Yeah, that's good. That was worthwhile. Okay. 6F is West Self-Report Survey.
So we had a surveyor in our building last Thursday. So right as we were sending out this agenda, so it got on there. So I think I've talked about this a little bit in the past. When we have a self-report, which is if an incident happens at the nursing home that requires us to do what's called a self-report to the state. Basically saying what happened, what we did about it, how we're going to prevent it in the future, things like that. Sometimes they come out and survey that situation depending on what it is. If they think we did anything wrong, there's some things that they automatically have to come out. This was one of those. We had a resident to resident situation in our dementia household. No one was hurt in the situation. It was pretty mild, but anytime something like that happens, they come out to make sure that we're preventing any issues going forward. So they were here for, I think they got there around 8:30 and she left around noon. So it was really short. She had no issues. We had no citations, thought everything was handled fine. So that all went well, but just another day with a surveyor in the building. So. And we're anticipating our central survey any minute. They were here last March. So they have to come by the end of June to meet their statutes too. So we are patiently, maybe not so patiently, waiting for them to come for central survey. Any questions on that at all?
That doesn't look like it. So thank you, Carmen. Now, number 7 is consideration for actions to be taken by the committee, review of vouchers and financial reports. So financial reports first. And are you going to do it or Deanna?
I can, and if there's questions that might be over my head on them, maybe Deanna can help me if need be, but I can go over to start. So we have the majority of the financial reports in here. We did not have the census or the aging one because those were ones that Jane specifically did, but these are from SAP and the projections Beata got for us for this. So I'll go over the financial report from January through April so far. So that is on the first page. So we have the revenues and with public charges and miscellaneous intergovernmental transfers, all of those things are in there, as well as all of our expenses, salary and fringe, agency operations, depreciation, and the CIP. We haven't had any of the CIP yet. That is in there. Once the golf cart arrives, that'll be put in there. So that'll adjust that accordingly. So as you can see, we are pretty close to the projected and actuals. Does anyone have any questions on the first one? Oh, yeah, yours was sent out before we had them ready. Sorry about that. It's on the back page of those. There's no specific questions on that. The next couple pages are the breakdown for East, West, and Central. They are all as expected. Central is always a little bit off because that's our facility that has less for census, but they are all as expected. And then the next page has our agency staff on it. So as Chris mentioned, we've been pretty stable with agency staff. We haven't had a lot of new. It's stayed pretty consistent. We might have an increase in the next month a little bit because we have had some turnover with RNs. So we do have an agency staff starting for a short time at least, but then we've also hired some internal RNs in the last week too. So hopefully that's a pretty short increase for a little bit, but we did have to hire some nurses because of our movement in our nursing department. Moving a full-time NOC nurse into an MDS position kind of took a hit on our schedule a little bit because a NOC nurse position is hard to fill. So that position will be filled with an agency person for a short period of time at least. So you might see a marginal increase there, but everything is staying pretty consistent around the 200 high 200s to low 300s for cost of agency staffing. And then below we have the NDC staffing as well as the total cost for nursing home staffing. So that includes both agency and internal staff. So pretty consistent. It went up a little bit, but we've stayed pretty consistent on cost. Any questions on any of the staffing costs?
No, go ahead.
Okay. That actually looks like one more page. And then the last thing that's on here is our senior meals. So as always, we are trying our best to break even on that endeavor. So that is pretty close there. So we're not anticipating or trying to make a large profit because we are just charging another Dunn County entity for that. So we keep that pretty consistent, as well as there are some other expenses that NDC incurs that don't get in here because it's not worth calculating out the number of utilities used and things like that. So it is pretty close to breaking even. So, and that's the goal. And then we also have the depreciation report in there. So through March, and then the projected out through the end of the year. There any questions on financials at all?
Supervisor Wolf.
Yeah, it's that, so we're looking at numbers for a quarter of a year or a third of a year?
So this is, most of these are January through April, so that would be 4 months.
Okay,
That last one just has through March because the April ones haven't posted yet.
thank you.
And I assume as usual, some things haven't been posted to April,
Yes.
so things could change a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it just kind of ebbs and flows with, especially like agency invoices take some time to post. And I know we've had a couple of hangups with some, dietary invoices. We've had some issues with some SAP stuff. So there's some more postings that'll come through for April as well. Yeah.
I think the peanut gallery gave us an idea here. Go ahead.
Sure. So one thing that you're going to see as an expense in the next couple of months, a large expense, is, as Chris asked, if anyone wants to guess how much commercial ovens cost, I unfortunately had to find out, Brady and I had to find out how much those cost. So we will have a very expensive endeavor to replace our commercial ovens because one of the two broke, and unfortunately, we can only replace both. So
Two.
yeah, so we have a double oven, and they stack on top of each other, and that is the only way we have space for both ovens. We need both ovens, and with replacing one of them, it will no longer be able to stack on the old one because they're 10 years old, 11, oh, almost 12 years old now. So we need to replace both. And we've had ongoing issues with the ovens anyways. They've been fixed multiple times. So I had Brady and Dave from our kitchen ask the companies that supply ovens to cost out what repairs would cost compared to what replacement would cost. And we've already replaced or repaired the same issue that we're currently having with it multiple times. And if we were to add up the amount that we've spent on repairing it plus another time, it would be the cost of a new oven anyways. So we decided that buying new ovens would be appropriate. But the total cost is going to be somewhere between $40,000 and $50,000. Do an old broken oven? We have two. Yeah, one of them still works, and hopefully we will actually be auctioning that off. So like we do with other items, we auction off older items. So hopefully that will come back with some offset a little bit, hopefully. I mean, anything would help. We're going out to bid for the ovens. So we've discussed a couple of different options, either the state contract, or we actually had a company that said that they would give us a lower rate than the state contract that's local. But then to do that, we have to go out to bid. So we're working on that. So I believe that's going to go out this week. So it's been submitted to purchasing, and they're just making sure that I don't do a lot of bids. That's more Scott's era. So I wrote it up, and purchasing is making sure that I didn't mess it up. So yeah, I have no idea. But in addition to the cost, so it's the oven as well as installation of the oven. So that's a big part of it because there's also plumbing related with these because there's water aspects and stuff. So we could probably get an oven cheaper, and then test Brady's plumbing skills on putting it in, but we're not gonna do
No.
that. So yeah,
Okay. It's always something.
always something.
Anything else on the financial report before we go on to the vouchers? No, it looks like we either get it or we're confused enough. We're not going to ask a question. So the vouchers, did you get some, Supervisor Love?
That's one whole.
One. Wow. No, I looked at them online. Thank you for attending, Chris.
And she, we got another birthday, in my suite, so there's, but thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Any questions? Any questions? Okay, then, I would take a motion to accept oh.
Motion to accept.
Okay, motion to accept the financial reports and the vouchers. Supervisor, Wolf has moved. I need a second. And Supervisor Story second. The motion is to accept both the vouchers and the financial report. Any other last comments? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? They are accepted. Thank you, everybody. Next meeting time? Carmen?
The next meeting is June 26th, the same time. And then while we're talking about meeting times, I was hoping that either we could move July's meeting, or you might have to have someone else give my presentation. I will be out of the state that day. So I don't know if there's a date or time that works better. I, I'm open to anything, or we can have Laura or Rebecca come too, but I do think July is probably when we're going to have to do the first approval of NDC's budget, so it's probably best if I was here for that meeting, so check the calendar.
That put it in August, but,
I had a week, so
oh, ahead a week. Okay, yeah.
let me just double check the public meeting calendar for that date.
Ye-
That would put us on the 19th, and there, oh no, that's June, sorry. On the 17th, and there's no public meetings, so it should work in terms of public meeting calendar. Does that work for everybody? Okay, so July 17th, 9 o'clock. Thank you, I really appreciate it. I have a flight out at noon on that day, so I was like, I don't think I'll be able to make it to 9 and then to Minneapolis by
Yeah.
noon, so
Okay.
I appreciate it.
So as another announcement here, next month I won't be here, but Supervisor Story, will you be here as the vice chair to run it?
It's after eye surgery.
Okay, you'll be here and you can see what's happening. Okay.
Sure.
Anything else? Well, just thank you for Dr. Brown coming and sitting with us these many times that give us a hand, and happy birthday. Therefore, we are,
I made the cookies.
one last thing.
Do you need a second to Gordy's motion? Or did someone?
We
second
did.
that?
Yeah,
You
she did.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you. So we are adjourned. And anybody help yourselves to the cookies and the rhubarb muffins?